Welcome to this new mPulse UI deep dive. In this deep dive, we're going to take a quick look at performance lines and how they can be used to create dashboards that give you a near instant insight into the performance of your site's key timers and metrics. It's useful when you're working with your key timers and metrics to have a dashboard where you can see at a glance when their performance is good or if it's wavering into moderate or even worse, poor performance. We already support the display of performance in our summary widgets, where performance is shown as green for optimal, amber for acceptable, and red for bad. We call these RAG colors, which is an acronym for red, amber, and green. However, summary charts show an aggregate of the timer or metric displayed over the time period specified in its filter. When we want to see performance in real time or over a specific time range, we need another solution. We provide the solution in a new preference in line charts. Let's see now how we can display the same rag colors on a line chart. So we'll open the widget editor and I'll create a line chart. And we'll start off by dragging time. What we want to do next is we want to drag in a metric or a timer that has performance thresholds defined for it. It's actually difficult to see this right now in this list because we don't filter by performance, but we can do so by turning on the displays performance option, which is a new option in the line chart. This will automatically filter the sidebar to only show timers and metrics which have performance thresholds defined for them. So you can see now that in the combined list, it's mostly empty, but we do have some metrics here. This is a byte metric and this is a count. And if we keep on looking down, you'll see that we have some timers as well. You can, of course, look in the individual lists where we filter out just metrics and timers. So let's take in page load as an example and drop it in here. And straight away, we get a performance line. There are a few things which you need to bear in mind when using performance lines. They're not really major limitations, they're just logical limitations in some cases, and it's just important to just bear these things in mind. So when we display the data for any timer or metric in a performance line, we stretch the range of the data to fill the y-axis. And the reason for this is it gives you the maximum amount of resolution to see what's going on in your performance, because basically the performance line fills the entire chart area. So this gives you a very clear display of exactly how that particular metric or timer is performing. Another thing to note is that whenever the thresholds are within the right range, you will actually see the threshold line displayed. This is the threshold line where the performance has gone from moderate to poor. And you can see that when it goes above this point, this threshold, the line is shown in red, indicating that you've got poor performance in this particular time period. Obviously, when it's between the good threshold and the bad threshold, you're in the moderate zone, which is shown with this amber color. And when you're below the green threshold, then you're in the good performance zone. Performance lines, by their very nature, they only work with a single series line chart. So if you create a multi-series line chart and you want to turn that into a performance line, you can't do that. And the reason for that is, if you think about it, you'd have to have multiple thresholds shown on the same chart. You'd also have, obviously, performances appearing at different heights, because each timer and metric has individual performance thresholds defined for them, which means that these numbers that you see here, for instance, 4 seconds and 3 seconds, it's going to be different for other performance lines. And as an example, if you were to mix seconds and milliseconds, two different timers, which you can do with multi-series, that would produce a very weird chart, because you'd have very tiny thresholds down here in the milliseconds, and you'd have these larger thresholds shown. So to keep things nice and clear and simple, you can't actually have a multi-series performance line. As I said earlier, another limitation is that you can't show performance lines for every single timer and metric. And the reason for that is that some metrics and even some timers, they don't really make sense in terms of performance. And for that reason, we haven't defined performance thresholds for them. So in those cases, like I said, it's much easier to actually just turn on displays performance. Then you will have your timers and metrics list filtered by whether the timer or the metric has performance defined for it. And then it's much easier to choose which timer or metric you're going to use in here, because obviously they present themselves very clearly to you. So you can see that performance lines are a very cool feature. If we go back to the performance line dashboard, So you can see this dashboard is a pretty good showcase of performance lines because it allows you to see at a glance very easily what the performance is of various timers and metrics that you think are important to you and your organization. Different organizations, they have different criteria for what performance is for them. So obviously we supply a large number of different timers and metrics which allow you to dig into your data and really find out what's happening in your particular website. And you can see here, this is just a very simple dashboard. We've expanded these charts out to be quite large. Obviously, you can make them smaller for your dashboard and pack in the data a bit more tightly. You can see very quickly, just looking at page load, that at 9:09 roughly, there was a bit of a spike there and there was a bit of poor performance. And what you can do then is try and dig into that and find out why that happened. And then you can obviously tune up the performance of your website. So yeah, performance lines, very cool new feature. You can use them in conjunction with other charts to build really compelling and powerful dashboards that give you a very quick insight into exactly how your particular website is performing.